April 28, 2020. 4:30 a.m. A two-story house in Turkey's Sakarya province was burning violently out of control. Trapped inside the building all alone was a 9-year-old boy, Shiar, who had gone to bed earlier than the other members of his family. Several onlookers had gathered to gaze at the fury of the fire, but attempts they and later firefighters made to rescue the boy were in vain. Little Shiar perished on that night. Here is the actual footage of the fire. The subsequent investigation carried out by the local fire department concluded that the fire had probably been caused by faulty electrical wiring in the house. This concurred with Shiar's mother's version of the events which happened on that fateful night. It was the fasting month of Ramadan, and she said that she, her 3 children, and her partner at the time, who was not the father of her children, had gathered in the house next door, where her partner's parents lived. In line with Islamic tradition, the family had come together to share the pre-dawn meal, which marks the beginning of the fasting day. She told investigators that Shiar, the eldest of her 3 children, had felt tired and wanted to sleep. She said that she told him he could go back home, but had to turn on the electric heater before getting into bed because it was a cold night. This explained why such a young boy was all alone in the house when the fire broke out with such fatal consequences. To everyone, it seemed that Shiar was the victim of a tragic accident. But was he? Doubts began to arise after Shiar's real father became aware of an incident reported to the police by a doctor just 2 days before the fatal fire. In her statement, the doctor recounts how Shiar's mother Gülizar and her partner Hami had turned up at their local hospital at 8 o'clock in the evening to receive treatment for difficulties Hami was experiencing due to being diabetic. The doctor states that Hami was in a state of total agitation and that she told Hami to calm down as they were bringing his diabetes under control. According to the doctor, Gülizar replied that her partner was not distressed by his medical condition, but he was in anguish over the loss of their 9-year-old boy who had died just 2 hours earlier. By chance, this same doctor saw Gülizar and Hami at the hospital following the immediate aftermath of the fire. Gülizar had tried to rescue her son from the fire and needed medical treatment for the smoke inhalation she had suffered. Concerned for the couple, the doctor asked colleagues if they had returned for further treatment of Hami's diabetes. She was informed that no. They were there because of a house fire which had claimed the life of their little boy only hours earlier. The doctor was surprised on hearing this news, as it was in complete contradiction to what the mother herself had said 2 days earlier. Sensing that something was wrong, the doctor decided to make a statement to the police about what she had been told. However, the police decided there was insufficient evidence to warrant further investigation and dropped the case. But they did pass on to Shiar's natural father, Samet, who was carrying out investigations of his own, what the doctor had said about the different timings of his son's death. This knowledge only fueled Samet's desire to get the truth of his son's death and find out what really happened to him. With this aim in mind, Samet approached a popular Turkish daytime TV show named after the woman who presents it, Müge Anlı, The format of the show is to investigate more unusual unsolved crimes in Turkey, and by bringing together and interviewing all those involved in the case, it tries to shed light on what really happened and who was or were responsible. The show is totally unscripted and is broadcast live over several days or sometimes weeks, according to the complexity of the case under investigation. Early on in the transmission of the show, we learn some suspicions that Shiar's death was foul play and not merely an accident. Came about after his two other children told him about a violent struggle they had witnessed, involving their mother, her partner, and their older brother, Shiar. According to them, their mother and Hami, her partner of 6 months, were arguing fiercely when suddenly Hami lost control and started to beat his lover violently. In a vain attempt to protect his mom, Shiar tried to shield her from the brutal blows, but only succeeded in being hit himself. The force of the punch was so great that he was knocked to the ground. His siblings say that he never got up. He simply laid on the floor and didn't move. In addition to this, the two children dropped another bombshell. They added that from that moment they never saw their brother ever again. Asked when this violent altercation happened, they replied 2 days before the fire. On the very day, their mother later told the doctor Hami was distraught because their 9-year-old boy had died that day. The children also mentioned a collection of poles and iron rods which Hami kept, a reference which was at first not understood. Only later did the sinister truth about Hami's strange collection emerge. On the live TV show, Gülizar is questioned about what she had said to the doctor at the hospital 2 days before the fire. Why she had said that Hami was in such a state because Shiar had died just a few hours earlier. She begins by blaming the doctor, saying that the doctor, had misunderstood her. She goes on to say that she had actually been telling the doctor about a recurring dream she had been having ever since she was pregnant with Shiar. In the dream, Shiar is lying face down on the floor in a pool of blood, the victim of a violent crime. She adds that she had similar dreams about her other 2 children being killed, and since the death of Shiar, she dreams that her partner's children die an early and bloody death also. Here she goes into elaborate details and says that she sees one child being choked by an unknown hand and the other is being hacked to death by none other than Hami himself, the child's own father. Gülizar says on the program that she has always had very vivid and violent dreams, but what terrifies her the most is that they generally come true, concluding that her dreams are a way for her to see into the future. It should be pointed out that when being interviewed on live TV, Gülizar flew into a blinding rage and stormed off the set several times, clearly unsettled and disturbed by the probing questions she had to answer.
Ya yalan konuşmayın, konuşsun! Yeter de! Yalan söylüyorsun! Ben şahitim orada ya, yeter!
Yapmadım ya.
Oraya geliyorum, görürsün sen.
Yalanları hep öyle, hep öyle.
As the program went on and days passed, more and more people called in with information about the couple. Many were former neighbors who painted a picture of a totally dysfunctional family, never able to settle in one place due to the problems they caused in the local neighborhood. Many made allegations that they subjected their children to physical abuse, that the bruises they were covered in and the screams they often heard at night were evidence of this. Some said that they often saw Shiar on the street in a disheveled and untidy state, smelling of urine and begging for money. Some landlords who rented properties to them claimed they left the home with horrific bloodstains on the walls. This is what one woman who had to clean an apartment after they vacated it had to say.
Ben bu evi temizleyen kişiyim. Evin duvarları sade kanıdı. Suyla yıkadım kanları ben. Yorganları da kanıdı. Hep örtündükleri örtü döşek hepsi de kanıdı. Yani...
On the show, the couple strongly deny all these accusations, saying that the reason for blood on the walls was that Hami was a self-harmer, and furthermore, both had made a several number of failed suicide attempts in different locations. Further damning information against Gülizar and Hami came when somebody who worked at a local gas station called the program and said that Hami and another man, later identified as Hami's brother, had bought gasoline from where he worked just one day before the fire occurred. Unconvinced that the couple were telling the truth, the show's host pressed on with her questions, picking holes in their story, until finally Gülizar breaks down and confesses. Gülizar began calmly, telling how her son Shiar had always been problematic. She said that he had never fitted in with their family, that he always behaved in ways which were socially unacceptable, how he ate his food, for example. For this reason, Hami's children never included him in their games, and as a result, he was growing up alone and isolated. It was at this point that Gülizar becomes distressed. She alludes to the fact that her son may have had some kind of mental deficiency, which in their eyes explained his troublesome behavior. More shockingly, she said that her partner Hami had been using his collection of poles and rods, one of which was studded with nails, to punish the children with. According to Gülizar, the punishment went beyond simply beating the children with a rod or a pole. She says that Hami often inserted it into child's orifice to satisfy his own perverted and sadistic pleasure. Gülizar says Hami was repeatedly and viciously beating her son, and that she had received a blow so hard that he lost consciousness, from which he never recovered. Contrary to the siblings' story, it was Gülizar who intervened to spare her child a beating and not the other way around. With the child seemingly dead on the floor, blood flowing from his feet and hands, Gülizar says that her partner concocted the idea that they stage a fire in order to burn the body and thus destroy the evidence of what had actually happened. Gülizar admits that she agreed to go along with this, but says it was at this point that Hami became so agitated that they went to the hospital to seek medical treatment, but it was the killing of young Shiar and not his diabetes that was disturbing Hami. Upon returning home from the hospital, Gülizar realized her son was not dead but still alive, but in a state of unconsciousness. I tried to feed him bread dipped in tea, she says, live on air, adding that he wasn't able to eat anything. Despite knowing that her own son was still alive, Gülizar helped place her unconscious son inside the building, which her lover Hami then burned to the ground. There was no escape for the 9-year-old Shiar. His body was consumed by the flames which raged through the building. Very quickly after making her confession on live TV, Gülizar and Hami can be seen getting arrested by police officers who had been waiting for them backstage. As she is being led away to a waiting police car, Gülizar is heard making a vow to kill Hami's children as soon as she gets out of prison. Here is the actual footage.
Efendim şu anda stüdyomuza hem Gayrettepe Asayiş Şube Cinayet Büro Amirliği'nden ekipler geldi. Hem de Ali Beyköy Polis Merkezi'nden yetkililer geldi. Sakarya Savcılığı'nın talimatıyla Gülizar'ın itirafları üzerine hem Gülizar'ı hem de Hami'yi ifadelerini almak üzere emniyete götürecekler. Hoş geldiniz. Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
Geçin şöyle. Tamam, elini tamam. Tamam.
Ne yapıyorsun hala dokunma bana etme bana diye ya polise? Neden? Tamam hadi tamam. Hami nerede?
Herkesi bitirebilir. 2 tane çocuğum var. Annesi de bile
Bak götürüyorlar.
Annesi de öyle, annesi.
Şu an Türkiye'de en nefret edilen insanlardan birisiniz. Bir şey söylemek istiyor musunuz? Pişman mısınız Hami Bey? Gülizar Hanım, gerçekler açığa çıkacak diyordunuz. Sizin de tutuklanmanıza karar verildi.
Benim çocuğumu nasıl öldürdüyse ben de onunkini öldüreceğim. Beklesin. Çıkayım ben buradan.
Peki pişman mısınız?
At the same time, but not shown on camera, Hami's brother and mother were also arrested in their home for the role they had played in these tragic events. Hami was charged with the willful murder of Shiar, destroying evidence and with sexual abuse against Gülizar's children. Gülizar was charged with aiding and abetting a murder and with perverting the course of justice. Hami's mother and brother were charged with the same thing. Although these events took place earlier this year, 2020, their trials have been delayed by the coronavirus pandemic, and all 4 remain in custody awaiting sentence. We can only hope that justice will prevail and that each one will receive a punishment which reflects the true horror of the crimes they committed. Despite her own confession, Gülizar remains silent as to why she protected a man who had killed her own son and who had not only physically but sexually abused her children with her full knowledge. She does not say why she took part in the cover-up of her own son's murder, why she helped Hami to place her son, knowing him to be still alive, in a building which was to be burned to the ground. What she has said is that she was very much in love with Hami, because he made her feel wanted, made her feel that she was special. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.